Here we have damage, and a lot of damage. Okay, that's a bit too much damage. Alright boys, this is unrealistic damage, so let me just show you a more realistic outcome. That's more like it. I mean, that's still a lot of damage, but hey, that's Khora for you.
Oh my God, you are the devil.
What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video coming at you with an updated Khora build. Now, for the people thinking, hey, is this going to be invisible Khora? No, why would I do that? Khora doesn't need to be invisible. So, in this video, I'm going to go over all the useful things that you need for your build to make Khora the beast that she is. And the best part about this is that you need no Riven. You heard me. That's right. So, guys, I implore you to pay attention. There will be timestamps. If you miss information, go through those timestamps. So without further ado, let's get on with this video, because that's a lot of damage. Khora is known for a lot of things. She's a very versatile warframe. The thing that everyone knows her for is doing a lot of damage. With her Whipclaw. When you activate this ability, Khora lashes out her whip, and when it reaches its maximum length, it explodes and deals a lot of damage within the area. The maximum explosion radius is 10 meters. Now, what makes this ability so unique? Whipclaw is an ability that functions like a melee, yet it cannot be inherently modded on the warframe, but it also scales from melee mods, also known as a pseudo-exalted. It has its own stats, which are not displayed on the ability card nor on the modding screen. This ability deals IPS damage. It has 25% crit chance, 20% status chance, and a 2x critical damage multiplier. These base stats already offer you an amazing damage increase, as you can find these stats on any popular traditional melee weapon. Whipclaw scales off ability strength, combo multiplier, melee mods, arcanes, and external multipliers. Building up combo is very important, as it provides you with a final damage multiplier to your Whipclaw per combo counter, capping at 3.75 times damage. I did say melee mods affect the ability, yet the ability cannot be modded. So that means it requires an external source to equip the melee mods to further amplify its damage. And that's when you acquire a stat stick. What is a stat stick? Well, it's a weapon that you can mod to affect and alter the damage output of your abilities, and also your weapons. A stat stick for Khora can be any melee weapon you want, because remember, you are not modding the melee, you are modding Whipclaw. The base stats of the melee do not matter. Literally, take any melee weapon you want, put mods in there, and it will affect Whipclaw. However, Whipclaw is also affected by melees with unique traits that modify your damage, like Kuva or Tenant weapons that give you that bonus elemental damage increase, skins or unique passives from melee weapons that increase your initial combo or base damage. I did say any melee weapon could work. However, there are some that you should completely avoid. For example, like the Zorus, or anything that pauses your combo, as those will work against the pseudo-exalted weapons, instantly depleting your combo. Going off from what I said earlier, saying that any melee can be your stat stick. However, combo pausing, avoid those. Yet this is where Incarnon weapons have been introduced to benefit pseudo-exalteds even more than the aforementioned damage modifiers, as the Incarnon activation and some evolutions affect Whipclaw. And there is one Incarnon melee that has become the best in slot option for Khora, the Magister Incarnon. Why this particular melee? Well, because of its final evolution. It offers you 16% crit chance and a 1x critical damage multiplier. These stats function as base added values to the Whipclaw, meaning this crit chance is going to turn Khora's 25% to 41% base crit chance, and taking the 2x critical multiplier to a 3x. This is already increasing your damage without even modding for it. Any other Incarnon perk pales in comparison to this. But Ceramic Dagger, no. What about, no. The Magistar Incarnon. As it stands, the Magistar Incarnon is the best in slot stat stick for Khora if you don't have a Riven. But what's funnier is that if you have a Riven, it still becomes the best in slot. And now we watch the dispositions crumble. You're welcome. Okay, now that we've established what melees that we can use, let's look at the mods that affect Whipclaw. Reminder, do not look here. You're not modding this weapon, you're modding Whipclaw. And it's affected by base damage, crit chance, your crit damage mods, elemental damage, status chance buildup, and combo duration mods. It is not affected by faction damage, nor attack speed, melee range, none of that. Yes, even condition overload, no. I did mention Rivens earlier, and since they are mods, they also affect Whipclaw. The two main stats that you want to have on your Riven are crit damage and base damage with a negative. Always have a negative, because negatives greatly increase the values of your positives. If you do not have a harmless negative on your Riven, it's immediately a trash Riven. If your Riven doesn't have these two main positives, crit damage and damage, then do not bother with it. There's no ifs, buts, or maybe. Stop coping. Not here to be nice. I'm here to tell you what's the best thing to have. If your Riven does have the crit damage and damage, it's still a very good Riven for Khora. However, you can have an additional stat, but be sure to look at your Riven disposition. Having a lower Riven disposition hurts the chances of you getting really good values on your Riven. So if you're looking for 3 positives, make sure to have crit damage and damage as your main ones. And the third one can be bonus slash damage, electric, or crit chance. Anything else is just subpar. Now that we've gotten all of that Whipclaw stuff out of the way, let's take a look at the Helminth ability and the abilities that synergize with Whipclaw. Like Its Hunt is still my Helminth ability from my last Khora video. As it states, there's a chance to get health orbs when you kill enemies with your melee weapon, and Whipclaw happens to be a melee weapon. Of course, headshots drop energy orbs, and you know what's funny enough? Khora's Whipclaw can headshot enemies. Anyway, to upkeep the duration of Like Its Hunt, you have to prime enemies. Affect them with 5 or more status effects, and that can be easily done with a primer and a companion. Unfortunately, companions are not consistent enough to upkeep this ability, so have a primer as your main source of applying status effects, and use any companion you want. And the ability that I'm replacing is Venari. Even though you're replacing Venari for a Helminth ability, she is still moddable, because she is a passive. Now, the synergies between Whipclaw and her other abilities. When you ensnare enemies, they take 2 times the damage from Whipclaw. You see how all of these damage multipliers start stacking up? And another great thing is her Strangledome. This is going to be our main source of crowd control, aside from Ensnare, but it's also going to be a loot generator and a damage distributor. Enemies caught in Strangledome are incapacitated, and when you have the Augment pilfering Strangledome, any enemy killed while in Strangledome has a chance to drop additional loot. On top of that, Strangledome functions as a very hard CC. Not only does it yoink, grab, and incapacitate enemies, it also draws in aggro from other enemies, meaning any enemies from the outside not caught in Strangledome will look at enemies that are caught in Strangledome as their enemies. So it's like a radiation proc. Unfortunately, it doesn't remove enemy auras, but it's still a very good crowd control tool. Alright, with all of that information out of the way, let's take a look at how we've built Khora. For the Archon Shards, you want to have melee crit damage. These are the best in slot Archon Shards for Khora. You don't have to worry about casting speed or anything like that. And the focus school is Naramon. Naramon is only used for Power Spike, because now your combo doesn't instantly deplete, but decays over time. And it's also very good for any mission that has downtime. For example, defense, mobile defense, you know, those annoying missions. So, moving on to the build. In the aura, I have Corrosive Projection. This removes 18% of enemy armor. This means it also increases my damage output on them. Prime Sure-Footed, because spending less time on your butt is a huge DPS increase. Range at 235% with stretch and overextended. This increases the reach on my Whipclaw to 23 meters and a max radius of 10 meters when it explodes. This range also increases Strangledome to 11 meters and 23 meter grab radius. The great thing about Strangledome is that you can have multiple instances, increasing the reach and effectiveness of the ability. Primed Flow for the large energy pool and Equilibrium for my energy maintenance. Equilibrium is a great synergy mod for Lycat's Hunt. Lycat's Hunt already grants me so much health orbs from melee kills, and Equilibrium provides me energy when I pick up those health orbs. And that's why you don't see any efficiency mods on this build. It can easily sustain itself. Prime Continuity for duration. This affects Ensnare, Lycat's Hunt, and Strangledome. Rolling Guard for additional survivability, granting me that beautiful status cleanse and 3 seconds of invulnerability after a dodge roll. If you want, you can use adaptation. That's up to you. And then the 2 augments. Accumulating Whipclaw. Reminder, I did say that Whipclaw is also affected by strength, but we're running negative strength here. Accumulating Whipclaw provides you with base damage when you hit enemies with your Whipclaw, capping out at 350% base damage. This multiplier is additive to strength because putting strength on Khora also gives you base damage on Whipclaw, but we have so many sources of base damage, making it useless to mod for strength on Khora. And finally, Pilfering Strangledome for the additional loot, making Khora a farming warframe while also a massive DPS, a room clearer warframe. And this is also your flex slot. If you don't want this, you can increase the range, duration, up to you. But alternatively, you can use Catalyzing Shields here, replace Stretch and Augur Reach, which will still give you enough explosion radius on Whipclaw, and in the aura, run Brief Respite. This can lower your shields more than enough to a point where you can instantly replenish them with a nice synergy of your Dome and Whipclaw. This loadout is for people who are a bit more careless and not using Khora's abilities. Because you don't have to worry about this, there's other sources of replenishing your shields for a new instance of a shield gate. And then looking at the arcanes, I have Arcane Fury. This grants me additional base damage when I crit, and we're always critting. Also notice, I only have 1 arcane here because the second arcane is a flex slot, up to you. And now moving on to the stat stick build. Magistar, Incarnon, not the Sancti or anything else, just the Magistar. Using the regular one gives you the highest stats on the final evolution. So let's take a look at the first build that you can do with Whipclaw, the raw corrosive damage. I have my base damage with Prime Pressure Point and Spoiled Strike. Reminder, attack speed does not affect Whipclaw. Crit chance with Blood Rush, Sacrificial Steel, and Gladiator Might. Gladiator Might is a 2-stat mod giving you crit damage and crit chance per combo. Basically, a smaller version of Blood Rush. And Gladiator Might and Organ Shatter for the crit damage, because if you're critting all the time, you have to multiply the damage that you deal when you crit. Elemental damage mods with Prime Fever Strike and Shocking Touch. This is the corrosive build. You're dealing raw corrosive damage. You don't need status chance. You don't need to proc corrosive. It's just raw damage. So that's why Weeping Wounds isn't needed. This build functions for literally anything. But if you're doing an endurance run and you want Khora to scale, that's where we have the slash build. And notice a few mods have been swapped around. We lost Sacrificial Steel in favor for an additional slash mod. Reminder, Khora deals IPS damage, so you're going to see Impact, Puncture, and Slash. Here, I decided to outweigh my other physical damage modifiers in favor of Slash, so I proc it more. And when we build up combo, we get status chance increase from Weeping Wounds, which will also be additive to Carnus Mandible. For my primer, I have Epitaph. This is right now one of the best primers in the game, because it offers you several elemental status effects on enemies, including IPS, to further increase your damage if you're using Condition Overload. However, the main thing we need priming for is for Lycat's Hunt. And when you debuff enemies with heat, you also increase the damage that you deal to them. The build is very simple. Multi-shot, fire rate, and multi-shot, along with additional fire rates. And I have viral and heat. Also, I want you to pay attention very closely here. Secondary dexterity. This gives me 7.5 times combo duration. And I can also have this on my primary weapon. Any primary weapon that you want. These two weapon arcanes are free combo duration. And now we move on to our companion builds. Starting off with Venari. The build is very simple. Prime Pack Leader increases Venari's survivability since she has no shields. What's funny is that you can give her shields with Link Redirection, so that will be the last mod here. But I was too lazy to forma, so that's up to you. Everything else here is normal except the bond mods. These are the new companion mods. Starting off with Tandem Bond. Melee attacks from your pet will give you combo counter. So this is also a nice passive way of gaining combo, thanks to your little pets. And finally, Tenacious Bond. Another damage increase. We're not stopping here, trust me boys. You gain a 1.2 times final critical damage multiplier. But take a look at the requirements. You need to have over 50% crit chance, and that's easily achieved thanks to bites. Now for the equipable companions. You can use whatever you want. It's up to you. You want Diriga for status spreading, the Worm for additional survivability, especially with negates, but I decided to go with the Hounds. This is Zivu Arath, built from the Dormammu Hound, a Delcor, Chancla Bracket, and the Hinata Stabilizer. This provides my Hound with decent amount of health and shields, making her quite durable. Guardian as the first mod. Boosts your shields back up to 100% when it breaks. Very nice passive shield regen. Repo Audit is a free low-key disarm. This does have some line of sight issues. Disarming enemies will have them move towards you. And since they're aggroed by Strangledome, they're just gonna blindly walk in to the Strangledome. Synergized Prospectus is really nice because it provides you with electricity, stunning enemies. Not only are they disarmed, but they're also shocked and charmed by the Strangledome. And finally, Manifold Bond. This reduces the cooldown of my abilities when I kill enemies affected by 3 or more status effects. And since I'm priming like crazy, so you're gonna frequently see these abilities being casted. And then finally here I have Mystic Bond. After your companion uses 5 abilities, you get 1 free cast. This is a flex mod, so you don't really need this. If you want more survivability for your pet, you can use Evasive Denial. Up to you. And for the weapon on my companion, I do have the Bato-10 modded for viral and radiation. Radiation is super important, especially if you're fighting in corrupted maps, or pretty much anywhere to be honest. The radiation proc is really good against enemy auras. Did you think that was all? Well, we have additional damage multipliers because why not? Here we have Magus Agris. This beautiful arcane increases your critical damage on heavy blades. It says heavy blades, but it also affects hammers. And what is the Magistar? Even more damage! So how to activate this buff? Well, pretty simple. Go into your operator or drifter and then use melee to transference back in. And that will provide you with 300% critical damage for 4 attacks. And it goes on cooldown for 20 seconds. However, there's this really nice feature that applies to Pseudo Exalteds. This buff is indefinite until you go down. Notice how this Magus Agris buff is still active, even though I've used more than 1 melee attack. Just make sure to not physically hit enemies with your melee, because if you do that, then it goes away. So pay attention, I have 3 hits. If I hit with my melee, boom, 2, 1, and it's gone. And then it goes on a 20-second cooldown. So just make sure. So enjoy this feature. So enjoy that feature until it is no longer a feature. I don't have much energy and I have my Lycat's Hunt active. Group enemies, prime them. They have more than 5 stats effects. Kill them. And look how my energy just instantly and magically filled up. So again, guys, please pay attention to your buffs, hit enemies, build combo, prime them, and you won't have any issues. Anyway, folks, that has been it from this video. I do hope you've enjoyed and learned something from it. And if you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and
Subscriber
that was cringe, I know. For more Warframe content, streams, and so much more, do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace. Bye-bye now.